Hello, my name is Brendan O'Neill and I'm a lecturer in University College Dublin and the co-director of UCD Centre for Experimental Archaeology and Material Culture. Today, I want to introduce you to our new Earth Institute funded project, Cultural Landscapes and Social Spaces, or CLASS. This is led by myself, Brendan O'Neill, Dr. Anita Rodini of UCD School of Archaeology and Dr. Samantha Martin of UCD School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy. This project is exploring early medieval roundhouses, as well as other light-framed organic structures from around the world, to consider questions about wider landscape, architectural approaches, and human health and well-being. In the year running up to this project, we have been working with colleagues from across the university, developing ways to investigate these spaces and understand their implications holistically. Our research into early medieval roundhouses began about a decade ago with a simple question. How were early medieval roundhouses built? In relative terms, our evidence for these structures on the island of Ireland is quite good. We know of approximately 47,000 settlements called ring forts or rats. These were largely built in a short time frame, perhaps less than 100 years, mainly during the 6th century AD, and consist of one or multiple sets of ditches and banks around the central living area. These were farmsteads, dotted around the landscape and formed the main way of living for these pastoralist communities. Most of these settlements would have had roundhouses within them. Although made from different materials, most were built from coppice hazel and thatched with local materials such as straws or heathers. Interestingly for this project, we know they were typically replaced every 10 to 15 years, perhaps linked to coppice cycles. Given the scale of building, hazel woodlands would have had to have been carefully managed and protected by systems that could limit the impact of loss or damage. Today, many of these long abandoned settlements are still visible in the Irish landscape, particularly in rural areas. Our previous work focused on reassessing the archaeological evidence for these structures, how they were built, and what was the experience of living within them, resulting in a number of publications. Central to this were reconstructions, one of which you can see on screen. This is a replica of a roundhouse discovered during an excavation of a settlement at Deer Park Farms in County Antrim, called Structure Epsilon by the excavators. It is a small 5-metre roundhouse with a roughly east-facing doorway and two concentric rings of narrow post holes, about 4.5 centimetres in diameter, representing the inner and outer walls. Crucially, Deer Park Farms also provided evidence for structural elements due to the excellent preservation of organic materials. This gave us evidence for the types of wood being used, the age of cut, and how the various elements went together. That said, all the roundhouses on this site were flattened, giving us a roughly two-dimensional understanding that we had to reconstruct. This led us to a review of ethnographic sources that use similar materials to better understand the architectural principles used to build what were at times quite large structures. What we found was diversity, but also some shared elements. These include that dominical structures were common, strong links between light-framed organic structures and pastoralism, people worked in direct relationships with their landscape, recycling of useful material was commonplace, and where used, thatches were not thick, but simply functional. Another inspiration for this project came through a pedagogic exercise in 2018 led by colleagues in UCD School of Architecture. Crossroads of Change in the Global South was an initiative to introduce a group of UCD students to other ideas of architecture by bringing them to the Samburu region of north-central Kenya to learn traditional house building directly from the builders themselves, Samburu women. Learning from these women operating at the coalface of climate change reinforced the connections between culture and landscape and underscored just how sensitive these practices are to changing ecologies and wider societal issues. It highlighted that these houses are not simply static objects to be studied and characterized, but they are representations of landscape and home. They are spaces where living is enacted and where people are born, grow old, and ultimately may end their lives. While in Samburu, we were introduced to a concept little considered within archaeology, pragmatism. Traditionally, the Samburu in this area covered the roofs of their houses in sisal woven mats called suti. These are sustainable, breathable, and culturally significant. Although beautiful, These are very time consuming to make, as the fibres need to be processed and prepared, and the mats themselves fashioned. Today, these same houses tend to be covered in various combinations of plastic sheeting, fast fashion clothing, and cardboard, similar to the image in the top right of the screen. While these don't necessarily look as attractive as their Sisal alternatives, this type of roofing material has the major advantage of being quick, freeing women to attend to any of the generally huge number of daily tasks that require their attention. There are also practical implications for this choice, mainly that they do not readily allow smoke to leave these structures. While the answers may seem relatively straightforward, there are reasons why these people want their houses to be smoky to a certain degree. It keeps termites away, it generally slows rot, it keeps a range of animals from the house, and there are certain cultural reasons for having a fire inside the house. That said, it also has the negative impact of causing some quite serious health problems. These and others are the real life issues that these people must balance, guided by tradition, inherited knowledges, and pragmatism. Communities like this show us that behaviour is not only about the things that we do, but also the context of why we do them. We all know that open fires are bad for our health, but they represent much more than that. They represent ways of cooking, ways of living, ways of maintaining a house, and symbolic ideas about life. From this background, CLAS was born, and its aims are to gain a better understanding of how materials, knowledges, and architectural principles intersect to create early medieval roundhouses, to better understand the relationships between people's settlements and their surrounding landscapes, particularly for communities that build organic light frame structures, to investigate how these spaces contribute to and impact human health and well-being, and to evaluate models for how and why people change normative practices. It is important to stress that we don't have a romantic view of the past, that it can provide us with all of the answers to address current global challenges. But we do think, similar to the approaches of ethnography and John Coles' characterization of experimental archaeology, the past can provide us with a range of possibilities. It can tell us how and why people changed, but most importantly, it can point us to the mechanisms that lead to these changes. To date, we have 12 partners from 8 different UCD schools, each bringing unique perspectives and skill sets to modules of this project. Although only a snapshot in time, we are currently working on developing research questions and methodologies with colleagues in UCD School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, Mechanical and Materials Engineering, and Civil Engineering, as well as UCD Makerspace and the National Folklore Collection. Our multidisciplinary approach has seen the development of modules of work examining woodlands and their ecology, how architecture of this kind evolves and informs how space is used, what it was like to live in these structures, and the social significance of the fireplace. It is our hope that at the end of this current phase of the project, we will have amassed a collection of different ways of representing these structures, each showing the different ways that our respective disciplines think about and understand space. We've accomplished a lot over the first part of this project, and in the remaining year, we are going to focus on a few key elements. We want to bring 3 of our strands to publication, one of which we've just done. We want to grow our multidisciplinary network inside and importantly outside UCD. We want to grow and formalise our non-academic partners, particularly in archaeological open-air museums and amongst general practitioners such as woodland managers. And finally, and most importantly, we want to design impactful public engagement events to communicate what we have learned directly to wider audiences. We'd like to thank you for listening to us today, and if any of you have any other questions, please feel free to get in contact with us. Thank you very much.